of LDtvTalk, and I am here with Kerrin Black. Kerrin and I met over Facebook Messenger when she reached out to me and wanted to know if I would be interested in being a guest on her podcast. And I said yes. And that was a few months ago. And we have developed a relationship via Facebook. And of course, I wanted her to do one of our episodes. So here she is. I'm going to tell you a little bit about her. She's got a great story. And one of the things that I talked about on her podcast was the challenges of entrepreneurship. And I told my side of the story, and she's going to tell her side of the story. But I want to tell you first a little bit about her very impressive background. So Kerrin is a serial entrepreneur, as many of us are. She's a publicist. She's a philanthropist. She's the CEO and founder of Talent Finder, Faces of Hope and Faces of Inspiration. And here's a great quote from Kerrin. I truly believe in making a difference in the world, no matter how big or how small. And I definitely agree with that. She was born in Johannesburg, and this is actually of the episodes that we've had on LDtvTalk. I think, Kerrin, you're the 12th person I've interviewed. I've had two women who are very good friends of mine and entrepreneurs who were born in Dublin. My friend Desiree, who I interviewed on episode 3, was born in South Africa. So I have one, and Kerrin was born in South Africa. So I have 4 internationally born entrepreneurs on this program. So 30% of my interviews have been with people who have been born outside of the US and are either working actively now in the US, or as you are, internationally spending time in the US as well. So I love that aspect, that we're international, and you know, the amazing forces of technology allow us to be side by side. So it's really incredible. So Kerrin attended school in Johannesburg. She studied drama and theater production at the Waterfront Theater School. Some of the people who have been influential in shaping her thoughts and brand are Richard Branson, Gary Vaynerchuk, and we have to get into if you swear a lot, Kerrin, because I know Gary likes to drop the F-bomb about every other word.
Yeah.
Oprah, Sarah Blakely, Warren Buffett, and Elon Musk. So those are some very interesting people to have as influences. I love the fact that so many people who I've talked to find Oprah an incredible influence in their life. I don't know that she has any idea that her popularity goes beyond just people who find her an interesting celebrity. It certainly permeates to women entrepreneurs who look at her as having an incredible gift to give in terms of inspiring people to get on this journey, which can sometimes be very difficult. So Kerrin has been featured in the South African editions of O Magazine and Entrepreneur Magazine. You know, there are many things about her background I'm going to let her talk about. However, the one thing I wanted to say is a quote that she provided on her vision that I think is really important, and that is, to build an empire that can show the world that anything is possible if you're willing to take massive action and refuse to quit. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Kerrin, who is someone who never quits. And she's going to tell, I think you should start, Kerrin, in terms of growing up in South Africa, what were were there the influences of the apartheid or aftermath of apartheid that influenced the philanthropic portion of your personality?
So thanks, Lynn, firstly, for a great introduction. So yeah, in fact, the reason I started my nonprofit was because a close friend of mine at the time was diagnosed in a transition period between two medical insurance companies. So in South Africa, it's a very different system to the United Kingdom. So private healthcare is obviously, you have to be on medical insurance or it costs a lot of money. So at the time, this friend of mine was diagnosed, as I say, changing between companies. And because of that, they wouldn't give him any assistance for his cancer treatment. And I had obviously gone out and I tried to do golf days and raise money. But as you know, most people don't, have extra money laying around for private healthcare, which is very, very expensive. So, and also people are not very trusting when it comes to these kinds of things, because there's a lot of theft, there's a lot of corruption, and so on. So the reason I started my nonprofit was actually inspired because of a friend of mine. And then I started getting other calls from other families in similar situations. And unfortunately, South Africa has the worst in terms of drug approval. It can take up to 8 years to actually get a drug approved. So even if the drug is approved by the FDA in the United States, when it comes to South Africa, it takes the council or whoever makes the decisions to bring the drugs in. And the other challenge is that even if they can bring the drug in, but if it's not approved or it's not on the medical insurer's list of drugs to support, then obviously people have to find the money to be treated. And there's no guarantees that they're going to survive. And in actual fact, the drugs that, for example, a lot of the patients I dealt with were lymphoma patients. So that's why, and there was this one specific drug that needed to come into the country, and people could get it in, but they would have to pay for it, to come into the country. So the reason, getting back on point, the reason I started the nonprofit was because I saw that there were so many people struggling, and we aren't, and we never will be a replacement for medical insurance, but we try to help raise money for individuals who need financial assistance with specific drugs or cancer treatments.
Wow. Okay. So you started that when you were still in South Africa. What were you doing at the time? Were you doing theater? Had you started your own business?
Yeah, so I had started Talent Finders when after my studies, and I was working for a production company, and I saw a gap where there was a problem when it came to casting. And I thought, and I'd actually been watching an episode of Oprah, funny enough, and she spoke about, and she had all these various different entrepreneurs, especially in the United States. And obviously in the US, entrepreneurship is better supported than it is in countries like South Africa. And access to funds or VCs and things like that is obviously, I'm not saying it's easy, but it's more accessible in the United States. So I literally just started, I said to my dad, because I was working at the time for a production company, and I had decided that I was, I'd seen a gap, and I saw, okay, there's a problem here with casting. They send the wrong height, wrong hair color, the wrong demographic in terms of casting. And I thought, like, what if we centralized all talent, whether it's represented by an agent or non-represented or self-represented, and be able to create a platform for all talents to get exposure, and those seeking the talent to be able to find it on one central database. And that's really how Talent Finders started.
So who were your first clients in Talent Finders, and how did you how did you get the word out about what you were doing? Because I take it, based on what you just said, that no one was really doing what you were doing, combining that, or creating that platform of talent, which would kind of aggregate everything. So how long did it take you to establish that? And how did you then get the word out about it?
So what actually happened is my parents were running a 5-star commercial game lodge, and the people that designed and hosted the website were the people that we approached, and they're actually family friends, and they have an internet or web-based business, and we had approached them and said, look, we don't have the funds to pay anybody to get this thing up and running. So would you be prepared to go into a partnership? And if you guys build and develop the site, then we will go out and market. And then that's really how it transpired. So we actually registered the business in 2005, but we really only kick-started everything in 2008. And, we had a series of challenges because at the time, we didn't have PayPal and we didn't have all these payment gateways. So to be able to have an online payment format was very tricky. And also to build something yourself costs hundreds of thousands, which we didn't have. So initially we had to start off on a debit process, which is obviously very antiquated and old-fashioned. But that's really what we ended up having to do. So so that's how we kick-started it. And then I initially started going to, store model management when they were in South Africa at the time. And they agreed, okay, they'll pay to list their people. And then we would do, one of the other provinces at no cost, but they would pay for the initial people in Joburg. So that's really how I kickstarted it. And when that happened, I was like, wow, still model management, the big modeling agency. So initially the goal was like just to focus on actors and models. But, if you think about it, talent is talent. Obviously, you have well-established talent and then you have up-and-coming talent. And I think really how it's kind of organically transformed is that it's been around, saying, okay, we could do directors, we can do producers, we can do photographers, cover speakers, athletes, all those types of people, and be able to centralize that talent.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's talking in the background.
Yeah, let me just close the door. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. I want to make sure we hear you.
Yeah, no, that's okay. Sorry.
Better.
So basically, that was the goal and the object. We initially started with 1 or 2 markets, and then thought, okay, well, that's also very limiting. So how else can we expand upon this? And then, that's how Talent Finders kind of transpired.
So you originated it in South Africa at an online platform. So how have you seen technology change from when you started it or launched it in 2008? Now, fast forward almost 12 years later, everybody has internet businesses. How has that helped your business, and how has that affected your business?
Well, I think there's been a lot of lessons, honestly, Lynn. Like, I think, small things like in 2016, I had a very bad professional experience. And, I decided to take the leap, and in 2017, I committed in October 2016 that I was going to leave South Africa. I was tired of, battling uphill and not really seeing much change or shift. So basically, I think obviously, now we obviously at that time there wasn't Instagram, I mean, obviously people were on Facebook and so on. So I think a lot has changed, but I also think now people really want to see like what value are they getting, from these online businesses, what services, what kind of exposure. And I think what's different, because a lot of people have asked me like, there's a million databases out there. So
Yeah.
yes, there are, and obviously a lot of them are very niche and very genre specific. But I actually went to a web summit in 2016 in Lisbon, and there's so much technology, AI, so many different influences. So for me, it was just like, how can like Elon references, if you read Elon Musk's book, he says, obviously, you're not going to go out and build a SpaceX initially because you need a lot of money and you need people to believe in the project. So he obviously started PayPal, well, he and his brother, um, and went from there. And his recommendation has been to people that are wanting to start something is, start something online. If you create something that's bigger and that grows exponentially, and ultimately what, like he did, he sold it, um, and then be able to use those funds to invest in other businesses. And I think for me, I think one of the reasons Elon, I have so much respect for Elon is because he is originally from South Africa, and he's shown a lot of people what's doable and what's possible. Because I think in some instances, a lot of people don't take us seriously, or, we just another country in Africa, etc. But, if you look at some of the people that have done amazing things, they've come out of South Africa, and it hasn't been easy.
No.
And obviously we know it's very competitive in terms of things like that. So to answer your question, I think there's a lot of changes, but I also think people are now becoming more conscious and going, what value is being added here, and what responsibility, or how are we responsible? Because I love these platforms. Obviously they're useful, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and so on. But I also think it has come with a lot of negatives. And I think it's the responsibility of the founders and the owners of those platforms, whether they're free or they're subscription-based models, which is what ours is, um, is you have to be responsible, as leaders in technology, um, when you're dealing with these types of things, because you are, it's the Data Information Acts, and there's all these things. And I think that I will say from a negative perspective, I think that there's a lot of, people are seeing what they see on social media, and then they're comparing their lives to everybody else. And then you're finding that there's a whole lot of issues around mental health and people and suicide and all these things. And these are things that are not being talked about, because everybody's painting, a picture which is not necessarily the truth. And the truth of entrepreneurship is it's very hard. People don't see that you sleep on couches, or that you struggle every month to keep your head above water. So, I think that there's a lot of factors, and I think it's the responsibility of the owners of these platforms or founders of these platforms to be more responsible.
Yeah, I think that, you and I had that conversation before we discussed my going on your podcast, that we didn't want to, although I've created LDtvTalk to be a showcase for women entrepreneurs. At least these series. We're also going to be branching out and doing other things. I'm still going to have the weekly entrepreneur series. But when people come on and they tell their stories, they don't sugarcoat it. And I think that it doesn't serve anyone well to know that, or to think that this is going to be something that is a layup, that you're going to be able to one day leave the corporate world, say you want to start your own business, and in 6 months be up and running and have a lot of revenue come in. You know, when you start brick and mortar businesses, it takes up to 7 years usually to see profit. So it's the same way with starting an online business. It is the thing that's different is that you can be up and running in a matter of weeks. So it looks like you have this very established business.
Yeah.
But in reality, you're building an audience, you're building a brand, you've got the struggles. Technology costs money, even though this platform may not. The software costs money, the maintenance costs money. It's all something that, so although we're celebrating entrepreneurship, and I think all of us are very grateful for the fact that we've been able to do what we've been able to do, there is also an obligation to tell people that there's a right way to do it, there's a wrong way to do it, and that along with that comes the realistic expectations of the fact that there are going to be challenges that are going to appear while you're on this road. And also, I think one of the things, and I want to talk to you about this, Kerrin, is the fact that even when you start something and things seem to be going okay, you need to pivot a lot of times because the market conditions change.
Yeah.
So talk about
and that's the thing. It's just moving really, really fast, like so rapidly.
Yeah. How have changes in, say, the competitive marketplace with talent finders, how has that changed how you've evolved your platform and how you get people to know talent finders exists?
Well, I mean, for me, obviously, it's been through the podcast, using social media. But yeah, I mean, for me as well, things like learning about pitch decks. And, I didn't even know what a pitch deck was because, in South Africa, everybody works off business plans. But in the US and internationally, everybody talks about a deck. So these were things that I realized that I needed to learn. And it was funny because a friend of mine in Ireland actually said to me, have you got your pitch deck ready for when you go to the Web Summit? And I said, what are you talking about? And it's taken us a good 2 years to get it to the level. Some people understand the deck and are very complimentary of the deck and said, there's a couple of things that they would tweak or whatever. But then other people, have shredded it to bits. So, it's everything is subjective. It's like art. So for me, I just think that, and these are some of the lessons that I've learned is that nobody, just because somebody says, oh, something isn't great or, is critical of you or is, a narcissist or rude or, or in a very male dominated industry does not mean that is like the holy grail to, that it's never going to work, because there's many women that have stood up, created amazing businesses in the face of being told all kinds of things or sexual harassment, which is very rife in the tech industry. And, you just have to, I think that's where you really have to, you get the grit to be able to continue, because if you had to crumble at every criticism, you wouldn't be where you are. Like, that's just the reality.
Right. So for those of you watching, I want to explain that Talent Finders is this technologically created, it's digital platform which Kerrin has aggregated talent from all over the world, and she has their bios and she has everything you want to know about this person, beautiful headshots, their experiences. So if you were looking to hire somebody, it's kind of the one-stop shop for an on-camera presenter, for for an actor, for a singer, for somebody who might be a musician. So it's a great way for people to find the talent that they need. So one of the people that she represents, I saw that she posted on Facebook today, was recently at a Mind Valley Summit. Can you talk about her and her experience and how you helped position her on Talent Finders for her next level of, you know, work?
Yeah, so Katie, obviously, she's been a very good friend of mine, but she is and has become a very good client as well. Um, and, she has a company called Brand Fusion. And really, the goal behind what she does is obviously brand building. And she started uh, a, program or a division of her brand called W Suite, which is basically, mentoring young women or mentoring women or helping women. So it's not necessarily previously disadvantaged. It's more around women who get to our level who need the next level to be able to expand and pivot their business. So she was recently at an entrepreneur week in Dubai, and she obviously got the opportunity to interview some of the top, some of the top people, some co-founders from Google, and yeah, just several really, also co-founder of Skype. So she had the opportunity. So it's all about positioning and then taking that and then also being able to leverage that in the media and be able to share her story, which is the other part of what I do, which is the publicity.
Right.
Um, so that's an additional service to what I offer on Talent Finders. But there's a common thread between all of them, and you can always leverage each of those processes. So marketing her on Talent Finders, marketing her through the media, radio, TV, magazines, etc. So so that's part of what I do in terms of what I've done for her.
So, in addition to having talent available on your site, you actively work to get that talent noticed and into different gigs, for lack of other word, correct,
Yes.
Kerrin? So you had someone recently that I know was a connection to Oprah magazine. I don't think it was a US edition, but or was it Glamour or GQ?
No, it was Oprah magazine. I actually interviewed the beauty editor from Oprah magazine. So, and then, um, for example, my other clients in Canada, I got him featured in GQ magazine. So yeah, I've covered a vast sector of publications.
Yeah, that's great that, as you said before, it's this forum that is an eclectic forum, not just something that is limited to vocalists or artists or, one single category of entrepreneur. It's a collection of people that you
Yeah.
can then work with and get publicity for, which is great. Who is the most kind of interesting person that you've ever worked with in terms of, and kind of the most unique gig that you've ever gotten for somebody?
Well, I would say, the one thing I can, which I'm proud of without blowing my own trumpet,
You
is
should.
I work with the cross pollination of people in various industries, which has been a blessing because sometimes you can be boxed or be known for one specific thing. Whereas with publicity, for me, it's all about the power of storytelling. And I think we know this, and I think we've seen this, and I think it became more evident. In fact, back when when my first client that I was working with, um, I had basically gotten him featured in 12 publications in a period of 3 months. And I'm not talking, low class publications. I'm talking Entrepreneur, GQ, Huffington Post, some big, big names, big platforms. And back then, I always, at that point in my pursuing of doing this, and I never done a day of publicity in my life. I hadn't studied it. I wasn't qualified in any of this. I didn't spend 4 years studying whatever.
Mm-hmm.
So at the end of it, I came to realize at that point in time, it doesn't matter how good you are. If you don't know or people don't know who you are, it doesn't make a difference. So if you look at every person that, and you reference some of them already, people like Oprah, Sarah Blakely, um, Warren Buffett, Elon Musk, all of them. It's all about their story. We all know their businesses are great. We're not delusional about the fact that they don't have challenges in their business, because every business and every entrepreneur and every company has more headaches in their day than what is perceived. But the truth of the matter is, it always comes back down to their story.
Yeah.
And that's really where my publicity skill comes, because if I'm getting people featured online, print, TV, radio, podcast, it doesn't matter what it is. At the end of the day, it's all gonna add credibility, and it's something that people don't understand. Like with for example, um, with for example, like if you look at Elon's story, he left South Africa with a backpack on his back. He landed in Canada and said to his mother, "What do I do now?" And that's my whole thing, is that look at him now. I've stood outside SpaceX. I have a friend that works there, and I stood outside SpaceX, and I was like, it's just showing people, wow, like it's possible that you could come from very little and make a success. Obviously he's got a very high IQ, he's very intelligent, et cetera, et cetera. He does have his faults like everybody, but these are the people, and these are the stories that sell. So my whole thing as well is that people think, oh, just because I'm in Entrepreneur magazine, it's going to explode me. And this is something that Gary talks about. It's like, it's not one thing that's going to just catapult you into another sphere and suddenly the whole world is going to know who you are. All of these building blocks in publicity and all this exposure is what is going to add credibility and build the credentials. And that's basically the bottom line.
Well, I think, excuse me, everyone. I think the quote that I started with is very important, because I'm going to read it again. To build an empire that can show the world that anything is possible if you are willing to take massive action and refuse to quit. And I think those last words are the most important, and refuse to quit. Because if you find, and it is the story, the story is absolutely key. How you started, the challenges. But for those people that we talked about, the Richard Bransons and the Elon, especially Elon Musk. Look, I'm not touting him as a perfect person either. However, when you look at his story, this is a man who has gone bankrupt not once and not twice. He refuses to quit because he knows, and he has the true belief in his heart that doesn't matter. He will rise from the ashes again and be even bigger. Now, not everybody is able to have that incredible trust and to know that anything is possible. If you have that mindset, if you put that energy behind it, if you refuse to quit. But for those people who have those success stories, that's usually the common thread.
Yeah.
They've believed that they could do it, and that they've taken the action necessary, and they haven't quit. And they continue because, Richard Branson, he puts ideas, I read, He puts ideas on paper that are, not like he's going to create, some kind of small thing. He says I'm going to give people the opportunity for space travel.
Yeah.
And he makes that happen.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it's being outrageous. It's being audacious with your dreams. But just putting that on paper can't get you there. You have to take the action. You have to believe in yourself. You have to create the brand story. You have to get the interest. You have to never stop. So I totally agree with what you're saying. So let's say if somebody goes on Talent Finders right now, who will they find? Who are some of the, what are, some of the people, or who are some of the people that, are talent that you represent right now who are on your Talent Finder site that some people could say, wow, that's interesting. It really is an eclectic mix. I know. Let's talk about Maggie and her jackets. Kerrin?
Yeah, I'm here. Sorry.
Maddie. Is it Maddie or Maggie?
Yeah, Maddie. Yeah.
Yeah. So tell our audience a little bit about her.
Well, I mean, she's a student. She obviously started her business as a side kind of thing that she was doing to help her, because obviously I know people have a lot of student loans, especially in the US and the UK, and a lot of people's parents don't fund them, and they end up with these massive amounts of debt. So she started this business, designing jackets or denim jackets. I mean, she designs a fantastic brand. And that's, so it's also about those types of people taking initiative, to help them to pay for their education. So whether that turns into a long-term vision for her, or whether this is just a phase, I'm not sure. But at the end of the day, these are the talents and these are the stories. And I think that's the other thing is, like, as a publicist, I see this all the time, and yes, I do the same, where you're referencing, millionaires, billionaires, and so on. But I think what's important for people to remember is that it's all about, telling people, like your story, and people that are climbing and people that are still building, because it's very easy to talk about billions. But, when people are struggling to put $1,000 in their pocket, it's not, it's not equatable to even think about the billions, because they're struggling. So I think it's more realistic to show people at different stages that there is a story to be told here, and these people are doing it, and these people are making it happen, and also to show people that these ordinary people, or even the likes of Oprah, and that, I don't think people must kid themselves, because, as you know, the more money you make, the more responsibility you have, the more you have to protect, you have to make really strategic decisions, as to not, lose all of what you have. But like you said, I mean, Elon's made, he's lost, and I think that
he lose again, and he knows that.
Yeah, and he's rare, because if you read his book, anybody that endured the level of stress that he endured would have had a heart attack. I mean, there's no doubt about it, because that's not the level of stress that most people could handle. So I think that that's also the thing, is people have to be realistic about themselves, and they have to be realistic about, their things. It doesn't mean it's not possible, but, lots can change. I mean, I know in my business, I started with one objective, and, and working 2 years to build a pitch deck that is of the standard, to be able to take my, business to the next level. So, it is constantly changing. and you have to be able to adapt to the change. And some people are not easily, they're scared, or they're scared of technology, or
Definitely.
and even like you see it on social media. I mean, I'm on social media, and I post quite a lot, and I post my journey, and I'm not there. I don't care whether I got 1 like or 10 likes, because I don't base my life's principle or my life's outcome on how many likes I get. And I think this is where society's become insecure, because people constantly checking their social media, constantly, I only got 1 like on this post. But people have to understand, and it's like Gary talks about all the time, is that you're building a brand, and these things don't take 1 month or 1 year. They take years to be able to. And even now, lots of people do know who Gary is, but there's still a huge amount of people that don't. And obviously every day he's growing and he's expanding, and it's a beautiful thing, but it's also like it's impossible to engage with every person. It's impossible to respond to every person, because as you know, as it grows. I mean, obviously, I'm not anywhere close to that, but I'm just saying, like, it's important that people also remember that those who are supporting you, you need to respond, you need to be supportive back. It doesn't necessarily mean you have to go and like every post of theirs or whatever, but if people engage with you on social media, it is your responsibility to engage with those people, because they're showing their support.
Yeah. Definitely. Yeah. How many platforms are you currently using to promote talent finders?
Well, I'm using, obviously, like I said, Facebook. I'm using Instagram. I'm using LinkedIn. And I also recently joined TikTok. I mean, I'm not very familiar with TikTok, so
I joined it too. I haven't done any.
I mean, I've just been playing around with it. I'm not kind of taking it too seriously, but yeah, it's it's going to be interesting to see what direction that takes as well.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's all about engagement, and it's all about, but what I love about video, or what I love about podcasts, is the fact that, or Instagram stories, it allows you to really have more of a connection to someone's face or someone's voice. And I see Laura on there and Patty. Thanks, guys, for being for watching us. 2 entrepreneurs are out there. Laura, jewelry maker, and Patty, digital strategist and web developer. So it's great to have them. Thank you for sending the emojis. You guys are entered to win a free human design reading. So I love that connection, because I think, being able to hear someone or see someone just makes the experience that much more personal. Don't you find that?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. And like I said, it always comes back down to engagement, and if people, that's why sometimes it's amazing to me, because there are some people that no matter how much support you show, and they may like your comment or something, but they never show it back to you on your social media. And I kind of think it is a two-way street, because we're all here to support each other, right?
Yeah, as Patty said, it's such a better energy share.
Absolutely.
It definitely is. It's the ultimate way to, and I think we're seeing that more and more. However, I don't know who I was talking to. Oh, it was my very good friend Amber, about, she was saying she can get up in front of a crowd of thousands of people and do public speaking without a problem. That's rare. So you have people who are very intimidated by going on video and really putting themselves out there. For me, it's very, very natural, because I love conversing with people and I love having conversations. So for me, it's a natural thing. But for some people, there is a barrier, like, oh, what am I going to talk about? I don't have anything to say. I don't want to be on video. Why would I be on video? Why would anybody really want to watch me? there's an intimidation behind the fact that you are putting yourself out there and you are sharing your energy with somebody. So it can be a little bit intimidating, I think. So I want to talk, Kerrin, about the fact that you're in the UK. You've traveled to Norway like last month or the month before. You also want to spend time in the US. How do you, with a travel schedule and with, being able to be virtual, how do you manage your business when you
I think
from virtual places?
Yeah, so I think, the beautiful thing of today and, the world that we live in today is that, I think more and more people are shifting towards, not having offices, not having massive overheads. I mean, especially as startups. I mean, most of us cannot afford those things, nor, to be able to pay staff members. So, it is a harder route. But at the end of the day, I think, well, for me personally, it's a great thing because as long as I have a laptop and an internet connection, I can pretty much work wherever I want without real restrictions. In the sense of, being tied to an office or whatever. And I've never been the type of person that could work for someone else. I just don't have it in me. I think I'd be miserable. But I think that's the story of most entrepreneurs. So I think for me, it's just more about being able to go wherever, and as long as I have an internet connection, like I said, it's pretty easy. Obviously accounting gets done because, Peter, well, he's my dad. He's involved in the business. So, I just make sure that all those kind of aspects of the business are taken care of and that these things get done. But I think it's a real joy to be able to go wherever and be able to just connect and just do the work.
Yeah, I think that, well, Patty has a business where she does web development, and she's got a new project that she's working on called Lucrative Laptops. And it's all about the laptop lifestyle, which allows you to, put it in the kiosk at the thing at the airport and take it with you and go anywhere. So I think that Patty says she couldn't agree more. I agree. I think that it's not for everyone. Some people like the comfort of a regular paycheck, of, working for corporate, of having assigned responsibilities, of answering to a certain protocol, but then at the end of the day, kind of leaving that. But then there are those of us who have been in that situation who looked at themselves and said, I want to move away from this. I want something where it's more on my terms than someone else's terms. Yep, lucrative laptops. That's right, Patty. Absolutely. Yes, it's lucrative laptops. Definitely. So,
and I also think from my own personal experience, I don't want to speak for other people, but I also think that it's a beautiful thing to be able to engage with different people from different cultures, because as much as social media and as much as online is a great tool, there has been a disconnect from face to face for people. And I do think that this is a struggle because, especially as a solo entrepreneur, when you're traveling around and you're doing all these things, it is a lonely journey. And I don't think that that's another thing that people take into account. So it is a beautiful thing to be able to engage with different cultures, adapt to different cultures, go in there with an open mind, because you never know who you're going to meet. I mean, I've met some amazing Norwegians, from my time and my experience in Norway, understanding, how they work and how their culture works. And, it's not because people think, oh, you know, like, South Africans may go into like the US market and go, oh, like I can just do whatever. And then you get a reality check because people don't necessarily perceive or work the same way with the same culture.
Yeah.
So even though it's an English culture, it's still a different culture. So be it American, be it UK, I mean, the UK people work very differently to people in the US. And I think the one advantage I can say, or the one thing it's given me, is it's given me an insight into how the different cultures work. And when you approach certain people with things, you know, you in some cases you have to be a lot more conservative in your approach than in other instances, whereas Americans are more open-minded. British people are not so much open-minded, and you have to. There's more of a it's almost like a class kind of classification,
Well, that's
and how you approach people. So in one way, I really, as tough as it's been, I really have enjoyed it because it's opened my eyes to understanding and also learning to have tolerance and less judgment of people. Because that's also another thing is people can make a lot of judgments on a lot of people, but they really don't understand. It's not a personal thing. It's just that's how they are culturally.
yeah.
And I'd say the best example of that would have been Norway because, they aren't very trusting when it comes to people from the outside. But as you gain a lot more insight and experience and you understand how their culture works, then they become more open and more accepting. So I've managed to make and meet a lot of people around the world and establish some very, very good friendships.
Yeah, that's that. I think that you can't. That's one thing that I think that if you have to narrow it down, it's not only the fact that you can work from anywhere, which of course is really exciting, but
Yeah,
it's the fact that you can experience a different culture and
yeah,
enrich your life exponentially by
mm,
by being with someone who has been brought up differently, who may think differently, who may act differently, and
yeah,
to honor them because their experience helped make them who they are, and
yes,
and discuss the differences, not automatically put these barriers up between the different cultures because you don't understand. I think that's a huge thing. Most people they're uncomfortable because they don't understand it. So
yeah,
a lot of times they back off, and it frightens them because they don't know. And they're not comfortable enough to go into uncharted territory. But when
yeah,
you're able to meet people and be with them and learn about how their thought processes evolved, then I think you're able to really kind of appreciate them in a different kind of a way than if you never were exposed to that. So that's an amazing thing. So if there's anybody watching who says, "Oh my God, I'd love to be international. I'd love to be on an international platform. I want to learn more about, you know, being on the Talent Finders platform." Well, how do they reach you, Kerrin?
So they can reach me on Facebook.
Okay.
So obviously there's Talent Finders, and then there's my personal. They can reach me on Instagram, which is at Talent Finders Live. And then my personal Instagram is Kerrin Black. Um, and they can also reach me on LinkedIn. So yeah, those are, and like I said, Twitter as well. So I find Twitter an amazing tool just because it cuts through a lot of, waffling, and you can just get to the point. So, but people can connect to me on any one of those platforms.
Okay. And what we'll do is we'll put the links, you'll send them to me.
Yes.
And then what I'll do is I'll put them on LDtvTalk Scoop, which is where we archive the shows. And what we do is we post links at the end of every segment so that if somebody wants to reach you or wants to follow you, they can find exactly how to do that. So now we're going to get to the lightning round.
Yes.
And we touched on this, but I want you, because you talked about a lot of people, a person that inspired you or continues to inspire you, and why?
Wow, there's quite a lot. But you just want one specific person, or?
There's one that kind of more than the others. You know, we talked about in the beginning some of the people that you've talked about, but they don't necessarily have to be people that we know. They can be people who we've never met, who has been an inspiration in your life, and why?
Well, I mean, there's a lot of female entrepreneurs that maybe aren't very well recognized in the public, but they've done some pretty great things. But I will say the one person who has been one of my biggest inspirations, and I guess it started back from when I was at school, is Oprah Winfrey. And, I think one of the things that really kind of resonated with me was, I had a miserable time at school. I struggled. I was ADD, the usual bullies, never really fitted into any specific group. So, I always used to watch the Oprah show when I was at school because I went to boarding school. And, and I actually once wrote a letter making a suggestion for her show. And back in the days when you were still allowed to send letters to Harper Productions before they had all this 9/11 and anthrax scares and all these other things, I actually got a reply, and I still have that letter, saying thank you so much for the recommendation, and that they wouldn't be pursuing that, but it was fine because at the bottom it was actually signed by Oprah. And you can actually see that it's a signature from her, not a print, not a nothing, just an actual. And I think it was even done on a typewriter or something. So, so those were, I think for me, because I share the same birthday, even though it's a different year, I just think what she's done is remarkable. I think that yes, she is a celebrity and she is known as a celebrity, but it's like you said, I think she's a lot more than that in terms of what she's done, what she's built. She's put her money where her mouth is. She's not blabbing about all the stuff she does. She just lives her truth.
Yeah.
And she built a school in South Africa. She obviously has a passion. She's made a big difference in a lot of girls' lives in South Africa. But just as a person, I think that what she has done is just remarkable. And that's one of the reasons why I feel like she is definitely, top of my list, as far as female entrepreneurs. And then the other one that really did make and has made an impact on me is Sarah Blakely. She took a $5,000 and turned it into $1 billion business, as you know, Spanx. So, she's just somebody that's, when she references her story about, traveling and with her red backpack, and I have my black backpack wherever I go. So I think, she's just, it's amazing. And even just the way she references about failure and, how her dad used to sit around the table and ask them, what did you fail at today? And just really changing the psychology and the negative aspect of failure and really turning it into a celebration and going, well, you know what? So what? I mean, I may not be good at everything, but, I have strengths.
Yeah. What did failure teach you today is another.
Yeah, exactly.
Basically.
Exactly.
Yeah. Seriously. Yeah.
Yeah.
So the best business advice you've ever received?
The best business advice, I would say, it's been through my mentor, obviously, just really guiding me, working on strategies, working on different things. But I think for me, the biggest thing is just, no matter what, and no matter how hard it gets, and there are many, many hard days, more hard days than there are, rainbows and unicorns, which everybody in this millennial age seems to be talking about, is, the unicorns and the millennials making all this money. But I think the best business advice is also understanding that, well, there's a couple of things, but the one that really stands out for me is that in business, it's not about spending all this money, or you make money and then you're going and buying clothes and watches and cars and houses and all this stuff. It's about really taking the money, reinvesting, and that's what I do. I mean, I reinvest, I put my own needs way below my clients and way below the people, not because I devalue who I am, but because I understand that for the long game and for the longevity of sustaining a business and growing a business, you cannot be going and spending, money on cars and showing and trying to show people and buy things and impress people that you don't even like. At the end of the day, like, I've always been very mindful, and I'm grateful for the advice in terms of, just being very cautious about where you spend money, especially as a startup, not wasting money on things, and just really trying to grow, So I think that those have been some of the biggest lessons, and understanding as well that at the end of the day, all this stuff doesn't bring you happiness. And I actually think that, doing things and having experiences, like I said, being in different cultures, understanding all these different elements, understanding what it is to build the base of business, because I don't think a lot of people address it. They just go, oh, I'm going to start a business. But people don't talk about, how are you going to manage your accounting? Opening bank accounts, building and developing pitch decks, all these basic things, taxes, all of these things. And how do you do it if you can't afford to employ somebody? Because most people can't initially. They have to go and they have to do everything themselves. And it's easy to say, oh, go and outsource it. But if you outsource it to the wrong person, there can be a lot of mess. It could affect your business. It could put you in jeopardy in terms of taxes or in terms of, different things. So I think people really need to address the basic fundamentals of what it is to actually start a business, and not talk about all these billions and trillions and gazillions of money when you haven't even gotten the basic fundamentals of the foundation of the business correct.
Yeah. What about the best personal advice anybody's ever given you? Is it different?
Yeah, I mean, I think especially of late, and especially of some of the lessons and learnings that I've incurred, through sexual harassment and other situations, is, that always remain true and authentic to yourself and to others, because you cannot be, I'm going to be one way in front of, my family and friends, and I'm going to be another way in business. I mean, I'm not saying you have to be, buddies with people in business and, pat each other on the back. But I think that you really have to come from a place of authenticity and truth of who you are as a person, and set the intention. And I think that that's the things that keep me grounded always, is that advice from my mentor, is just remain true to yourself, and remain true and authentic to the people around you. Because at the end of the day, kindness, authenticity, honesty, being transparent, all of those things is going to hold you in good stead and create longevity in what you're doing. Because I think
I agree.
If you're living something fake and then behind the scenes you're something else, it's eventually people are going to see through it.
It's true.
Yeah.
So how about an app that you can't live without? Is there one?
Um, I would say, well, Uber actually.
That's a good one.
I don't know how long it's gonna be here in the UK. This is not a
I've
problem.
heard that they lost their license in the UK.
Yeah, but they're appealing, and it's the same old story that happened even 2 years ago. So I'm not sure it's still operating at this current point in time,
Across.
but nobody knows if it's going to continue. But yeah, I mean, Uber's been a great one. It's been a great rescue, especially if you need to go somewhere urgently, or
I agree.
things like that. Yeah, and then also Airbnb, funny enough, and I've also I'm on this other website which is called Trusted House, which is also another good piece of advice for entrepreneurs
What's it
who are
called?
traveling, who want to save money. So basically, you pay a fee to be on it. You can go and pay your house sit for free, and in return you get free accommodation, which is a lifesaver for those people who are really, really trying to just save money um, in terms of their entrepreneurial journey. So it's a very small price to pay in comparison to trying to pay to be somewhere or stay somewhere or whatever.
Oh, good. You'll put that also. Send me the link to that, and we'll put all of these in the LDTV Talk Scoop.
Perfect. I'll definitely do so.
How about a charity that people may not be aware of that's doing great things?
Well, I would say that Indaba Mandela is a very good friend of mine. He runs a charity called Africa Rising in South Africa, and basically it's around education and trying to just really, continue Nelson Mandela's legacy. So he doesn't have anything to do with the Nelson Mandela Fund, but it's his own fund. He wanted to create something and continue Mandela's legacy, and obviously Nelson Mandela raised him. So yeah, so his organization is called Africa Rising, and I know that he's also been involved in doing a lot around the US, and he does have an entity in or an organization, nonprofit 501c3 registered in the US. So yeah, I think they're doing great work, and just being able to put technology into the rural schools in Kunu, which is where Nelson Mandela was originally from, and just trying to really make an impact on the youth. And I think what he's doing is not just the youth of South Africa, but actually the youth of the world, and getting the message out there to continue the legacy of Nelson Mandela.
That's beautiful. And then finally, a book, a lecture, an event, or a situation, any of the above, that made a real difference in your life.
I would say Elon Musk's book really made an impact on my life. Obviously written by Ashley Vance. And yeah, I mean, for me, I went through a very bad situation in 2016, and I was backstabbed professionally. And what I did was, when I went through that crisis, because it was really an emotional crisis, because it's amazing how the level of damage people try and inflict on other people to gain position when I was so busy doing my job. And I actually had been wanting to read Elon's book for some time, and eventually I picked it up and I started reading it, and I couldn't put it down. And I think for me, I guess I feel like I have some level of connection to him, even though I've never met him. And I understand it from a South African perspective, because we have gone through a lot more struggles than most people have gone through. And most people will not understand that. I mean, he was bullied at school, he was considered different. And obviously, as you can see, look what he's produced today. But I think some of the greatest things in his book were, if you want certain specific things to be done, you have to do it yourself. Not leaving it up to an assistant. Yep. I mean, he spoke about in the book, that he had to go and pick up a specific part. And he got on a plane and he went and picked it up, because he knew that he's got investors on his back and he needs to make sure that he delivers what he's set out to do. And by leaving it to somebody else to do, could have easily messed something up or whatever in the system.
Sure.
So, he's very hands-on. I understand it's not about micromanaging people. I think you realize, because I don't like being micromanaged. But I think in his case, he's very hands-on. And that's the way it should be when you're a founder. It doesn't necessarily mean you are in touch and talking to every single staff member every day. Everybody's got a different style. Some people may agree with his style, some people may not. But I think when you have to look at someone like Elon, you have to understand that when you have other people's money and those people are investing a lot of money, you have a massive, intense amount of responsibility to those shareholders or to those investors.
Yeah.
And I think people can make judgments and say, oh, he's hard, he doesn't care, he's fired people, da 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 da. But if you were in that position, you would have to look at it and go, I would have to make some seriously hard decisions. And sometimes they're going to be fair, and sometimes people are going to consider them not to be fair. But at the end of the day, it's his responsibility, and he takes that very seriously. And so for me, his book really made an impact, and it really made me kind of unlearn everything else that I had learned from previous people that I'd worked for, which were not nice people, and realize actually it's very important to be hands-on, not just leave things to other people, because if things don't happen or the job doesn't get done, the onus falls back on you.
Yeah.
And you can't blame anybody else but yourself to say, well, I should have been more hands-on. I should have understood what was going on. But at the same token, I do believe you have to learn to treat people with respect, because the people that are in your business, they, yes, are helping you to build something, but at the same token, there has to be respect. And I don't think that being horrible to your staff members or walking in with a massive ego and swearing at everybody is I think that kindness and empathy goes a long way. So, yeah.
Well, thank you, Kerrin. It's been great having you here. Thank you. You'll send us all the links.
Yes, I will.
Okay, perfect. Send them to me. I'll put them up in LDtvTalk Scoop. And if anybody has any questions about talent finders, you will have the link, and Kerrin can tell you more about how you can get on her fabulous platform. So, Kerrin, thanks so much for being here.
And thank you for having me.
And if everybody else will stick around for 2 minutes, I will do a show wrap up and we'll talk about next week. So thanks again.
Thanks, and thank you.
Bye. So Kerrin is great. I love the fact that she was able to provide a perspective on entrepreneurship that is a little bit more global. And certainly her background in South Africa, I think, really shaped her, has really shaped her life very uniquely. It's, their story as a country is very interesting, very challenging, very rocky. So anyway, we're wrapping up. I always talk about something I'm fanning. I always do that. So here's something. Now, this is going to change because we are about to embark on our first line extension, if you will, of LDtvTalk, coming up on the 5th of December, which is this Thursday. Tomorrow, my special guest for the first installment of LDtvTalk Shorts is going to be Trevor Folgering. He is a keto diet lifestyle coach. He has his own website. He is going to be our keto diet advisor. We will have him on regularly. I am a big proponent and always have been of a low carb lifestyle. I will tell you that I have been the same size, give or take 3 or 4 pounds, since I was in high school, and that was a long time ago. And I boil it down to one thing, and that is not a lot of carbs. So I'm healthy. I don't have a lot of inflammation. I feel great. I have no arthritis. And part of that is, having a low carb lifestyle. The other part is using HGH, but we'll go into that on another segment. So anyway, unreal. So I'm fanning this for the moment. And the reason I brought up Trevor is he's going to provide us with a recipe for keto chocolate covered peanut butter cups. But in the meantime, you can run out to Whole Foods and you can get these today. They are fair traded. They are non-GMO, and they are only 5 sugars in one of these. So they fit a low carb lifestyle. 5 sugars is not a lot, and there's 7 carbs. So if you're keeping your carbs at 60 a day or under, you can have one of these for dessert. They're fine. So anyway, that's what I'm fanning. I'll put that in the tips. For those of you who have Laura Cass and Patty Slater who have dropped a sun emoji in here, and for those of you who will do that on the replay, you will be entered to win a free human design reading by I will do a free human design reading. I'll pick somebody. And if you don't know what human design is, I will tell you. It's a life-changing modality based on your birth chart, and it's all about energy. And it's pretty fascinating. And how we manage our energy and use our energy and shift our energy is really, really key. So that's it for this week. Next week, Diane DiResta joins me with our fingers crossed that her audio problems are solved. We will be ready to go. Find out more information about Diane on LDtvTalk Scoop. And watch Trevor tomorrow at noon Eastern time. It's going to be great. We're going to talk about keto. And those of you who want to know more about keto, we'll have links to that as well. How you can get on a keto diet, how you can find a product that can help you kind of stay on keto. So we've got some exciting stuff, and we're going to have more. On the 9th, Toby Terry is going to come back and join us for a beauty short on holiday hair. So lots of great things in store. Thanks for being here, and we will catch up hopefully tomorrow, or for those of you who want to watch this in full, on the replay tonight. LDTV Talk on Facebook. Bye.